4. I'm going to start recording so I can put this up on Instagram later in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Comic Book Club hosted by your old pal Sam. Do we need a title for this show? Nah, it's okay. There's plenty of comic book clubs out there. You reading the Nerdist one? Or joining the Nerdist one? They do some cool stuff. Also, Nerdist Book Club. That's Maud, Rachel, and Hector. And you should go listen to that. They read the adult books. They read, not adult books, they read regular books. Because they're already off to a bang-up start. But boom. All right, today we're talking about Letter 44 by Charles Soule and Alberto Albuquerque. And you go and correct me in the chat on pronunciation of those names. I do an okay job reading the pronunciation online. And weirdly, there's not really a Wikipedia for this book. There's barely a page on Oni Press's website. Same company who made Scott Pilgrim, by the way. They're very good comic book company. Hinbud, Jasmine, Rhiannon, Carla, Langley, Esteban. Thank you all for joining me today. Appreciate you guys. Yes, so there's not that much info about this book, so I get why it might not be the most popular, but it did run for a considerable amount of time, and thankfully a good amount of the first couple volumes are available on Comixology Unlimited, which you can join right now. They have free trials as well as so many sales going on right now for different DC books, Marvel books, indie books, third-party publishers. Make it sound like we're voting. But speaking of politics, this book might be my favorite political thriller that I've ever viewed or interacted with via a medium. Saying it really vaguely. Usually, if you told me something was a political thriller, it's got to be like really good. It's got to be really interesting to keep my attention. By the way, if you want to send some love for the hat in the chat, I would appreciate it. My hair is getting long, and my girlfriend is now offering to give me a haircut, and I have been a little baby about it, and I'm nervous about it, but I think we're going to have to do that, and I might stream that next week. But back to the Letter 44. Political thrillers normally don't do anything for me. I know in the 90s they were all the rage, and my parents loved to watch them, and I don't think I ever regretted watching any of them. They're just not the genre I'm going to be reaching for if I'm looking for a book, a comic, or a TV series. Also, if you told me it was a political thriller comic book, I'm like, that's gonna be a pass from me, dog. But I was thoroughly surprised by how much I enjoyed the way that they navigated the political thriller and political drama genres with this series while also making it a sci-fi thriller. This might be one of my favorite alt universe tales that try to be grounded in our own universe. For the people who aren't familiar, the book immediately opens up with the inauguration of the 44th president, and that's what the letter 44 stands for. It was the letter written by the 43rd president and left on the Oval Office desk for the next president, just kind of giving some pointers, saying what they think about the job or anything. It could be anything. And normally I actually did not look this up. I don't believe that the regular public even has access to any of those letters, that's fine. It's a private letter. But this letter 44, clearly, President Blades, the incoming president, is supposed to be a stand-in for Obama in terms of what he meant to his party and what it meant for, not to get political on my end, but it was meant to kind of symbolize a more optimistic outlook of what could happen in America's future with this new president. Right, keeping it like that. And President Carroll, the previous president, is a George Bush stand-in the sense that got us into the Iraq War, the economy's in the pooper, and also they need to fix the Medicare system or the healthcare system, not just Medicare, but the healthcare system. And President Blades, the incoming president, clearly does not have a high opinion of the previous president. But this letter written by President Carroll, I'll just start using their names now. Explains that he understands why people judge him for what he did and how he ran his presidency, and he acknowledges that people might view him as a moron, even this incoming president, but he enlightens President Blades with the knowledge that 7 years ago, for unknown reasons, a satellite or some kind of superstructure appeared in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and as far as America knows, they didn't put it there, and neither did any of the other countries on Earth, so this is the first confirmation of alien life. Now, they did not make that public knowledge because they didn't know what to do with it. Because and in these first couple pages, I love how it's unfolded. That you you hear the logic of why they didn't tell not just the U.S. population but the global population, because they're like, if a civilization could get there and build whatever this structure is, because they can't, because for some reason there's like a camouflage around it, but they just know that something's there and it's being built. There's active movement there that is unnatural compared to the rest of the asteroid belt. But the reasoning being, if it could come this far, why wouldn't it let us know that it's there? Why would it come and build something within spitting distance of a civilized planet or a developed planet? Maybe they knew that how we'd react. Regardless, President Carroll made the call to start preparing the United States for the inevitability of them meeting these aliens. And so they did it on two fronts. One, he sent astronauts or scientists and military personnel to go and check out whatever this thing is. We end up calling it the chandelier, and I think that's one of the coolest reveals, because also, just saying, when we do interact with these aliens, I've never felt such an uncomfortability with alien life. I always think it's like so cool and so amazing, but the more you learn about them, even when you like do learn what the deal is for why they're here, and that does take a while in this series, and I do like that they kind of stretch it out. Every moment, every interaction always has me at the edge of my seat. I'm always just untrustworthy of these beings, but also their structures. Anyway, so first front is sending scientists and military personnel, but also using the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War as a cover to funnel funding into the military complex as well as NASA to build weapons and vehicles and suits that are capable of possibly taking on this alien threat, or if it ended up becoming a violent, like a hostile situation. J Shark, Jay, Hinbun, Jasmine, Rhiannon, thank you for joining us. Let us know if you're watching in the chat. I would appreciate it. So things are already off and running for this new president. Of course it is, because they're not only picking up the slack of the last president and trying to play catch up with his advisors, as well as the multiple branches of the government, as well as the international affairs. I couldn't even imagine being an incoming president, but also being dumped the knowledge that the U.S. government has secretly been investigating actual aliens, and they might be a credible threat in this very almost like sterile scientific way, where it's not like a virus that's infecting the earth, or it's not like a big flying saucer coming down, or a big like Independence Day warship. It's just like there's something suspicious within a distance that we could feasibly get to. The biggest stretch, I guess, in this book, besides the fact of besides that there are aliens, is that they were able to secretly build a space station that would launch out in outer space and no one noticed. That's like the biggest stretch, but it doesn't matter because that happened 3 years ago and now they're on their way. And I love the crew that they set up. We have a few women, mostly men, but there is diversity within this crew, and there's multiple points of view going into it. Some people are more hostile going into it. Some people are more scientific when it comes to investigating these aliens. And at the end of the first issue is when you get to see the chandelier, when they pass this veil that's hiding it. And you get a sense of the uncertainty for our characters, but also for the entire planet, for all of humanity. What are you supposed to do? And so we face this threat on two fronts. This unknown entity, we'll call it that, on two fronts. One, you see the President Blades deciding whether he should tell the U.S. public about where their tax dollars have gone, and also just the fact that there are aliens. We have proof. We don't know what they look like. We don't know what they're doing, but they are there, and they are very close, and they weren't there within the last 10 years, and they arrived. But also, you can hear like the entrenched bureaucrats. They're being sneaky, but I don't know if they're totally wrong. I think they should tell the U.S. public like right off the bat, not just because of the point of view of President Blades, the incoming president, but also just I want to know. I would like to know. I don't know if I'd like my tax dollars going to the fund two in this world, almost fake wars, because you were doing it for secret reasons. I would like to be on the up and up because of that. But also, hey, I'm dumb. I barely know where my taxes go right now. Anywho, yay taxes, yay tax talk. That aspect of taking on this threat is really interesting, but also the political intrigue and the espionage from the main Elijah, I think he's the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State Elijah, who is like the point person for President Blades, and he's the pusher. He's the one who's able to get things done and get the correct answers and make sure what the president wants done gets done. And he's this young, very eager young man who isn't taking any BS from these entrenched bureaucrats. And I love the role, and I know I'd be so intimidated by him, but there's a part of him that you like. But too bad, because a assassin is hired to inject, I believe they describe it as an air bubble that this into his veins. Also, something else, because Elijah's like foaming at the mouth. He has a stroke due to whatever is injected into his neck, and we see the Secretary of Defense hiding that fact. And the reason why the political intrigue and espionage works for me in this book is because of how the president deals with it. Not just when the special ops team is sent after President Carroll, the previous president, and trying to find out where he's hiding, and it's in this like militia protected compound in the mountains, and it's like a recreated White House, and you're like, oh my god, I love that because it's so just delusional. It's bananas what this president's doing. But also the way he's able to take on the Secretary of Defense once he figures out that Elijah is alive. He did tell somebody that he was attacked, and that was not only that he was attacked, but also like that was covered up. And the way that the president handles that by sending his Secretary of Defense to check out every single embassy that the U.S. has in every country. There's over 200 of them, and he needs to work on the relations with those countries. And the fact that like if he were to quit, which he could, that's within his power. But just so you know, if you quit, you're kind of disavowing the U.S. government, and we don't really know what would happen to you if you did that in non-friendly territory where there are embassies. That whole thing always has, it always gave me so much anxiety, but at the same time, it's like when the nerd in the movie gets to punch the bully in the face in a really creative way, or not a creative way, but in a really satisfying way. And it's some of my favorite writing, and that made me stick with Charles Soule in his Daredevil run. I was a big fan of his Daredevil run, and I have not read his Star Wars comic books from Marvel, but I've heard they're very good. I know he wrote for Vader for a while, so I highly recommend checking those out. And I love the artwork from Alberto Albuquerque. And I know they've been trying to shop this book around for a while, and I would very much like to see an Amazon or like a Netflix or a Hulu or somebody adapt this book, because there is so much to mine from in terms of world building. But anyways, going back to the second way of dealing with these aliens is with our scientists, and some of like the more scientific aspects of addressing what they're experiencing. I like when they use a laser to point at this asteroid that looks just a little too out of place. So they fired at it, and the information comes back even, as if the laser didn't degrade at all. And the idea of something just being slightly unnatural is what I find interesting. It's like when you hear like UFO stories, and you hear just like when they're using camouflage, or if a person's like a UFO or an alien's like shape-shifting, and they look just a little off. Everything's just a little off. Like it's almost there. It's almost perfect, but something about it is unsettling. And when they go into the asteroid and it opens up for them, and they see this like Eden, there is oxygen that's breathable as far as they can tell. There are plant life, there's water, and there are these little drones, these multicolored pyramid cone-esque robots, basically, that shatter once they are slightly disturbed. But when they start attacking the astronauts, it's just something about it is so simple yet so haunting. It's like watching bacteria fight a infection, or the other way around, white blood cells fighting like bacteria, like under a microscope, or watching protozoa attack each other. It's just something that, but on a large scale, is haunting. And also the realization when you find out these astronauts aren't planning on coming back, that they are willing to sacrifice this for their country, but also their world, and in the pursuit of discovery. And there's something noble about that. But at the same time, since Charlotte is pregnant, there's going to be a baby, and they don't really have a plan for that. I know they're in the first volume, they talk about that, like, if they found a way to get water out there, they can convert it into hydrogen fuel and possibly come back. But that's not what the plan is. The plan is that they get there, and it's a one-way trip. So there's so many stakes with there being a baby on board, and the fact that nobody knows who it is. And I love that like it just became a big orgy. Just all these astronauts are just trying to find connection and love any way that they can out in space. And yeah, I mean it's messy, a lot of emotions, and I will say there is a lot of them are mentioning a specific astronaut that we haven't met yet. And I think they're not there. I mean, I know what happens, but when we learn more about that whole scenario, it feels very Lord of the Flies, but not as dire, not as people, children turning into animals, that kind of situation. But this first volume is so jam-packed with so much political intrigue, and the button at the end of this first volume where there's a letter 43, the letter for the previous president that President Blades doesn't believe anything that is being said. They're now going to deploy these weapons overseas, which there is definitely a lot to talk about. Like if they did a series to talk about the deployment of these like basically sci-fi weapons, like the suits that make soldiers stronger, the energy weapons. It's worth debating that. But the fact that he's not believing anything President Carolus said, he is going to deploy it. He's going to end the wars. He's going to get the economy back on track. And he's going to do so while also telling the global population that aliens do exist. And so far, we've seen what both sides of this story have been willing to do to cover it up and to uncover it. So it only ramps up from here, and it does a really good job of being both sci-fi heavy but also politically charged. And they do so in a way that feels very balanced. And I really enjoy the way this book is able to teeter-totter through both topics. And this first volume I think is perfect, and I think basically every volume is perfect. I would like to know from you guys what you thought of thank you to Teddy Sugary over on Twitch joining, and Edward and Jay Shark and Matthew and Jay, and yeah, you guys, thank you for joining us. Sorry, but I would like to know from you guys when you got to the end of this volume, or of this series, excuse me, what you thought of the wrap-up. It felt a little fast to me, but also in the same sense that, like, I can't actually say more because I wouldn't want to spoil it. The way that I felt that it was wrapped up a little quick, but not in a bad way. I just loved the way that this whole story unfolded. I always wanted to know more. Through and through. I just think this is a very solid story, and I know that it's been shopped around, and I understand definitely the hesitation of bringing a show like this to life, but I mean, I haven't watched this show, but if the shows like The Expanse can exist on Sci-Fi, then Amazon, I feel like a show like this could exist because the political intrigue, it could be very West Wing-esque. I've only seen clips of it when I was a kid because my parents are big fans of it, but a blend of The Expanse and West Wing could lead to a very fulfilling TV show. I don't know about a movie necessarily because I want the time to live with each of these characters, not just on the Clark, the ship that is investigating this alien structure out in the asteroid belt, but also all of the cabinet and the other government officials that are having to deal with this, and it does become an international issue at one point, and it's pretty, man, it's just a roller coaster ride, and I can't believe I'm saying that for a political intrigue comic book, but it is wonderfully entertaining, and you can read the first couple volumes on Comixology Unlimited. I wanted to say that one more time. Honestly, this first volume I think is perfect. Like, truly, I think there are some other comics I've talked about here that are very, very good, like DC New Frontier. That's a really good one. Lock and Key is a really good one. But it's just something about the way it's able to set up this UFO mystery, which I think I'm a sucker for because I used to read UFO encounters a lot when I was a kid. I'd watch Ancient Aliens and UFO Hunters and was it Something Mysteries? Something Monster Mysteries? No, Alien Mysteries? Dang it, I can't remember. But yeah, I eat all that stuff up. So the way that they were able to ground that kind of story so effortlessly with the current, with the at the time current political climate, and in a way that's just believable. And again, please, anyone out there, I know all the execs like to tune in every week from all the big TV and streaming networks. Please make this show. Just please. You'll be so happy you did. It'll be amazing. Look at Lock and Key. You finally started making that. And I don't know if that's the best example of that, but I think this would be a really good one, and you could get a lot of mileage out of it, and you could expand upon it for a while. And once you start learning about the aliens, whoo boy, they were a surprise when I met them and what they're capable of. But anyways, that'll be it for today, gang. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to say a thank you to everyone joining me over on Twitch, Periscope, and YouTube. We've got Teddy, Sugary, Edward, J Shark, Matthew, Jay, Hinbun, Jasmine, Rhiannon, Carla, Langley, update, Estevan, HM. Thank you all for joining me so much. Really appreciate it. Next week, I did get some recommendations from Danny M, aka Echo Spider, who's got a great comic podcast, which you should check out as well. He recommended there's a bunch of Marvel sales going on over on Comixology. I'm trying to see if I can find it really quick. Yes. There are free Marvel comics. Excuse me. There are a bunch of free Marvel comics over on Comixology, so please go check them out. And I'll go ahead and take a look through them and see if there's any big stories, like Civil War, Secret Wars, or something else. Secret Wars, the more recent one that ended the Ultimate Universe and made the current Marvel Universe, is awesome. It's really fulfilling, really cool. But with that, and Marcus, thank you so much for joining right at the end. But this will be on replay on Periscope, on my Twitter, as well as on my YouTube channel and on IGTV. I'm going to try uploading again and see if it works. But gang, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. So I ended the recording, and now I want to go ahead and cue up the thumb, and I'm going to play us out with a little bit of music. All right, gang, thank you so much. And I will see you. This is now the real one. This is the real bye-bye. I'll see you next time.